A superhero gets a sick ride. Here's your look at McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, Dark Knight's Death Metal, Bat Cycle. Following the universe-shattering events of Dark Knight's Metal, the Earth is enveloped by the dark multiverse and is transformed into a hellish landscape twisted beyond recognition. Commanding an army of the undead, Batman rides a bat cycle made from the bones of a Joker dragon in his war against the Batman who laughs and his omnipotent goddess, Perpetua. Before we get a closer look at Bat's ride, the first thing we're going to want to do is figure out how long this is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something a little bit different. Obviously, I need to know the stopping point of this, and this laser is just going to continue shooting across the room. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm just going to put my hand right here. This is basically where the end of the tire is. I'm going to start the tape measure here. I'm going to end it where my finger is to give me roughly the length of how long this actually is. According to the readouts, the Bat Cycle from Death Metal stands, or lengthwise, is 10.9 inches long. We can switch that to centimeters, revealing that the vehicle is 27.8 centimeters in length. I figured before we brought in Death Metal Batman, because obviously he's going to end up being on top of the Bat Cycle when I have it on display, I figured we would first have a closer look at the vehicle, because it's some pretty impressive sculpting here from McFarlane's team. Let's go ahead and pick this one up. This does have, of course, as you would expect, rolling wheels. I'd be quite disappointed if it didn't have rolling wheels, but it does have rolling wheels on both sides. The treading of tire seems like it's a softer plastic. It's not quite rubber, but it does have like a bit of a softer feel to it. One thing I do like is on the inside of the spokes, you can see there's a bat emblem. And that's actually not on this side necessarily. But you flip it around to the other side, you got the same thing going there as well. Nice little touch of detail. Speaking of detail, there is a lot to really take in on the particular Bat Cycle here. Of course, crafted by a Joker dragon skull, as you can see right there on the front. And it does have the rib cage down the side. You imagine the idea of not only taking down a Joker dragon, but then taking it and making and crafting your own Bat Cycle to be driving around. Like I said, somebody from the 90s probably came up with this idea. It does have some really interesting looking sculpting to it. Of course, we can have a look at the head sculpt right there. It sort of does makeshift serve as a bat head, as you can see. You can even make out the molars and the larger fangs there on the front. It's got some exquisite detailing done to it. I would suspect that the eyes have been painted rather than actually just inserting yellow plastic for the eyeballs. They don't have a lot of detailing, mind you, but they pop, and that's really the one thing you would want from this. Now, I think like the paintwork on this is really quite good. I don't want to continue to go back to the same thing I was saying in all these reviews, but I have seen some real talented people take a brush to this and really enhance some really dark elements, adding contrast in those necessary places. But I really feel like just stock and getting it out of the box, it's not a bad looking Bat Cycle at all. Of course, you've got the more darker gunmetal gray making up the mechanics of the Bat Cycle. This really does remind me of something American Chopper would have designed. And if they haven't already done so, it's been a while since I've actually watched Orange County Choppers. But I feel like this could be something that they could do as a tasked project. Imagine replicating this as a full one-to-one vehicle that somebody could be driving around. I think that would be super cool. One thing I didn't mention, of course, obviously with the eyes being painted yellow like this, they serve as makeshift headlights. Does that mean he would have caved in the socket of the eye and actually fed lighting system through this? So, of course, it would make no sense whatsoever to be driving around this in the dark if, of course, these weren't functioning headlights. I would imagine that they would be. A really nice detailing done on the interior of the ear. Really stunning sculpting everywhere when you see this. The texturing that they've incorporated to just the bone work alone. And then the idea that you're mixing like organics with machinery just really looks super cool. Of course, you can see on the back some continuation of the bones. I mean, there's a fully realized bike under all this. Not, of course, there would be one once you remove the head, which I wouldn't really advise that you do. But you got to believe, like underneath all of that, it looks like there would be a functioning bike. I don't even know where he would put in the fuel. Wouldn't you generally put the fuel tank would be located at the front? I'm sure he's got another place where he fuels this bike up. As you can see, there's a little bat logo down below there. That's a nice touch, a little fan there on the side. Really, again, some stunning detail. It does have some posability in the sense that you can rotate the front back and forth. Of course, for steering, that's going to allow Batman to decide where he wants to go. Obviously, you guys will want to see what it looks like with Batman, so let's go ahead and reach off to the side here and bring in the death metal Batman, which I know when I did the review of it, it was probably a bit hard to read. I absolutely love the concept of Batman driving around in a big bat cycle like this. But you kind of get a good idea. He's scaled generally really well with the bat cycle. Now, of course, to get him on his trusty steed, what you will want to do is just bring the legs up on Batman. I find it kind of helps as well, just kind of bring the legs out slightly as well. Go ahead and bend the knees. If you ever had a motorcycle toy as a child with a rider on top, you pretty much know by now how to put Batman on top of the bat cycle. I will want to bring the trench coat back just ever so slightly. One thing I really like is the way that the bones are located on the back of the bat cycle. It does a great job of just parting the middle of the trench coat where like the trench coat flaps are on either side. Then from there we can go ahead. First thing I like to really do is take Batman and put his hands into the handle grips here, which I can hopefully see if I can do on camera. There is one. And then we'll go ahead and do the exact same thing on the other side. The only one thing I would critique this for being, once I actually get everything on there we go. And then once that's in place, as you can see right there, then we can go ahead and adjust Batman's legs. This is the only thing I would say the toy misses a mark slightly, is that you can just barely get Batman's legs on there. It does require you really having to push the figure down for him to actually reach the pedaling there on the front. But he does do it. That's not really super well. I don't know really what I would have done differently. I mean, I guess technically they could have put peg points right here where the feet could have attached a little bit better, but that would have also involved Batman having a peg hole not at the back in his heel, but instead actually right at the front. They would have to have done that a little bit differently. But I got to think that they could have put a peg point right there, right on the very top of the pedal, so you can actually have attached Batman's foot to it. Like I said, if you have Batman riding low enough on the seat, he does line his feet up to it. But like I said, there's nothing really there in place to keep the feet from, of course, falling away, moving away like that. But that looks, man, super, super cool. The only thing I haven't really been able to find yet, though, is a place for him to hold his scythe. Which, of course, if he's going to be riding around the bat cycle, I can't imagine he's just going to be holding it and steering with one hand, and then trying his best to hold the scythe in the other hand. That would be probably a little bit more difficult. But like I said, I can't really find a place where I can store it. Any place that you would think that you could slide it into, like perhaps just before you hit the spoke, you would think that if he's rolling his tire, that would get stuck in there and then knock him flying off the cycle. Short of this, not really a place that I can find where I can store this. Maybe I can actually tuck it right in there. No. Like I said, it doesn't really have a real dedicated space. I guess if I slide it right down there we go. I guess I could technically put it right there for a temporary fix, for a way at least to display, but it really isn't going to stay properly where it should be. Other than that, though, I'm really, really happy with how this turned out. Yes, it could have probably used just a little bit more paint to it, because in the comics, of course, there's some really nice dark contrasting colors to it. But I think just out of the box, without having to customize anything to it, the bat cycle looks really super imposing when you have it on display. Again, going back to a point I probably mentioned when we had a look at the death metal Batman, is that you really could display Batman without the bat cycle. Personally speaking, though, for how good this actually looks, I'm really glad that I was able to pick up the bat cycle so I could properly have Batman riding on top of it, as he does certainly in the comics. Determined really to find a place where I could actually store the scythe while Batman's riding on it. I found really the best place I found, at least, was just behind these tanks here, I guess where the exhaust is coming out. There is just enough of a spaced gap between this and the main engine of the bike that you can slide the scythe in place. The only thing about it, though, is it does bend Batman's, there we go, just bend his jacket up slightly. That definitely does make everything look rather nicely finished. Especially, again, if he's going to be driving around on the bat cycle. You'd like to think at least there could be a place for him to store the scythe. And for the time being, that seems to be the best place that I've found on the vehicle. This now marks the second vehicle McFarlane Toys have put out for their DC Multiverse line. If you remember, not too long ago, actually it was quite a while ago, we had a look at that Batmobile, that one with the fold-up front, which at its time, it was an okay vehicle. I can understand, if anything, McFarlane Toys had to test the waters to see if there was just a general interest with people buying Batmobiles or just vehicles as a whole before he probably got to something a little bit larger. Admittingly, though, of the two vehicles, this is a sicker-looking ride for Batman. This is definitely dedicated, I feel, to the death metal detective, although you probably could use another Batman. But I think if you're going to go out of your way to buy this Batcycle, it's probably with the intended plan that you already have or you're planning to pick up the death metal version of Batman that can be rode on top of it. Now, you'll notice on the back of the box here, the image in the far corner, Batman is riding around in this very same Batcycle. I don't know where they've got that scythe placed. It looks almost like it's strapped to his back, and obviously the hazard of having it displayed like that would be the front of the blade would most likely puncture that tire. The best place I have found for displaying it with the vehicle is just tucked behind the exhaust pipes on the back of the Batcycle. It seems to be the most secure, and it also seems the safest that it's not going to cause damage to Batman's tires. It is definitely a cool looking ride. Could it have used a little bit more paint? Well, that's always debatable. I think for what it is out of the box, it's got a good level of paint that really it enhances the sculpting that they've incorporated into the bones. Just again, the very idea that Batman's driving around in a Batcycle composed of bones of a Joker dragon. How cool is that? This is definitely a very interesting and yet very intriguing ride. I'm glad that they were able to release that along with the death metal Batman. Yes, they probably could have packaged the two together. But that would, of course, increase the prices of it. And then you would have some people that probably just want to get the figure. They don't want to get the vehicle. So it probably would have made most sense that they went the route that they did and had these as two separate pieces that you could pick up. Have you picked up the death metal Batcycle for yourself? Let me know down below in the comments section what you guys think of it, or based on this review as well, what do you guys think of the Batcycle from Death Metal? Also, if you're new to this channel and you're enjoying all the content you're seeing, because we've been doing a lot of McFarlane toy reviews as of late, but there's definitely a lot more coming your way. The key, though, is making sure that you're staying tuned to this channel by hitting the subscribe button down below, by hitting the bell notification, and by, yes, keeping those peepers peeled, because there's definitely going to be a lot more McFarlane Toys, and specifically a lot more McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse reviews. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.